Everybody, welcome back to episode of My Thoughts. We're back here with our annual My Thoughts on the finals, the NBA finals. Of course, I'll do this with the Super Bowl, just the championship of each major sports league. I haven't done one on the World Series or the Stanley Cup. I don't think I've done a My Thoughts on the World Series or the Stanley Cup, finishing up the major sports leagues. I know I've done the Super Bowl. We do that yearly now. That's a traditional thing. And of course, the finals we'll be talking about here. I will do. I think I'll do the Stanley Cup final since that also wrapped up. I think I'll do that at another time. Then I guess maybe I'll probably do the World Series this year when that wraps up and ends. So I'm not really into baseball as much as I am for hockey, football, and basketball. So I don't might not have too much input on the World Series. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think I'm going to start doing the Stanley Cup too. So we'll get to that. But for now, of course, we have our annual My Thoughts on the 2026 NBA Finals. Of course, we're just going to get right into it. So it was a very interesting series, I think, between the Knicks and the Spurs. A lot of high stakes series, high stakes finals, and we're going to talk about some things here. And I think it's a very interesting. It was a very interesting series. Me personally, I think it was better. There was a lot more hype and a lot more, like I was saying, a lot more, high stakes. There was a lot more going into it than last year. It was the Thunder and the Pacers. I don't know. Everybody, nobody really wanted to see the Thunder win. I personally wanted to see Indiana win. I don't know. Last year's finals just really wasn't it. So I think this year's finals brought back a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around the finals. And I was really excited. I was as you know, the Knicks did win the NBA finals, and of course we'll be talking about that. But I didn't. I wasn't rooting for either team. I would love to have seen the Spurs win. I wouldn't mind seeing the Spurs win, but I also seen the Knicks win. I love to see that. And like I said, we'll be getting into that. But I was pretty neutral. I wasn't really minding either team, even though the Knicks are kind of a rival team to Philly. I mean, it is what it is. But I think they definitely deserve this finals title. We'll get into that. So I'll be more or less ranting. I'll be giving my kind of raw thoughts. I will be reading a little bit off of the article just to match statistics and whatnot. I'll be reading a little bit of a Wikipedia article on the 2026 NBA Finals, just because Wikipedia makes it pretty easier. So that's just the source. So I'll be reading a little bit off the article. Then I'll also be giving my, straight up my thoughts, kind of ranting a little bit. So just how it's been, with all of my thoughts and whatnot. So we're going to get into it. So of course, going back to the Eastern Finals, the Knicks defeated Cavaliers in a clean sweep 4-0. The Thunder almost made it. The Spurs pushed the Western Conference Finals to Game 7. They pushed it to Game 7, and they won 4-3. But, Thunder almost made it back to the finals, but they didn't. And it was very nice to see Victor Wembanyama. Of course, he is, the big talk. It was very cool to see him in the finals. He really wanted it. He's really passionate about playing. You could see he definitely wanted it. But, as a young player, he'll be back. I think he'll be back. I think the team is very young and has time to develop. Talking about the Spurs, I think it's a very young team and has time to develop. And I think they'll definitely be back to the finals, just showing what they showed now. So I think they'll definitely be back. It was, a young team in the finals. The Knicks, a slightly older team, that had a little bit more veterans on there, a little bit more experienced team, I would say. So for them to come out in the finals and win it, a lot of people had the Knicks favored, but it's Spurs. They fought. I mean, they fought all the way to Game 5. They weren't quite out of it yet, and they fought. They fought like hell. So I think big props to the Spurs, just to say. So they definitely fought hard in this series, and despite their loss, I think the Spurs definitely deserve to be in the finals amongst others, and yeah, I think they'll definitely be back. So there's still hope if you're a Spurs fan, I would say. So they fought. So I'm just going to go over a little bit from the article here, just going over each of the games, each of the 5 games within the finals. There was a lot of NBA finals, particularly NBA and NBA finals history made within the series, so I think it's very interesting to touch on. So kind of going in here, just trying to scroll through the article here. So just in general, actually, before we get into that, I'll go in a little bit. So this was the second finals meeting between the San Antonio Spurs and the New York Knicks. In the previous finals meeting during the lockout shortened season of 1999, which was the last time the Knicks were in the finals. The Spurs defeated the 8-seeded Knicks in 5 games to win their first NBA championship. Of course, the Spurs had it. And then teams has also met in the 2025 NBA Cup just as recently, and New York won 124-113. And then this was the first time both NBA Cup finalists had appeared in the finals, and the first time the winner had made the NBA Finals. And then the two teams split their two regular season games, of course. That's just a little bit of general background on how the season was for both of the teams. Of course, in the second round playoffs, the Knicks did sweep the Sixers, and they haven't lost since they had, I think it was like a 14-game winning streak in the playoffs. I don't think they lost until that one game, I think in Game 3. What was it? I think it was Game 3 they lost in the Spurs. They lost to the Spurs in Game 3 of the finals, and I think that was the only game they lost. Before that, I think they had like a 14-game winning streak. I'll fact check that later, but I think they had a 14-game, undefeated streak within the playoffs. So that was pretty good. But in Game 1 of the finals on June 3rd, the Knicks overcame a 14-point deficit to win 105-95, making it the first time the Spurs ever faced a series deficit in the finals. Jalen Brunson led them with 30 points, including 13 in the fourth quarter, on relatively inefficient 12 of 31 shooting and the most attempted shots in a finals debut since Allen Iverson in 2001. Karl Anthony Towns finished with an 18 points and 12 rebounds, and then OG Anunoby scored 17 points, 12th in the fourth quarter, or 12 in the fourth quarter, I should say. And of course, Landry Shamet, classic. I'd love to see him win a ring. That was cool. He also scored 13 off a bench. He made a good difference coming off a bench, I think. And then Josh Hart also had 6 assists, 4 steals, and 15 rebounds. San Antonio's Victor Wembanyama had 12 rebounds and 26 points on poor 6 of 21 shooting. Julian Champagini, I believe I think it's Champagny. I think that's Champagny. That's how you pronounce the name. I'm sorry about that. He also scored 16 points. He made a big difference as well. So a lot of the younger guys on the Spurs, despite their loss, I will say, a lot of the bench players and the younger guys, everybody was kind of getting in with the Spurs. Like I said, Champagny made a name for himself. Even Landry Shamet on the other side of the Knicks. I think a lot of the team's deep benches really made a difference. Now, of course, the star players did, of course, on both teams. But I think the younger side of the Spurs really came out and made a difference. Came off the bench, especially for the finals. So I think that was really good for the Spurs. Like I said, I think the Spurs will be back to the finals within the near future. I think they showed a lot of good, tough tenacity within the series, and I think they're young, and I think they'll definitely be back with maybe a few adjustments. Then the Knicks after Game 1, Knicks lead 1-0. And of course, in Game 2, another 104-105 win for the Knicks. The Knicks became the third team in the NBA Finals history to win the first 2 games on the road in San Antonio after the 1993 Chicago Bulls and the 95 Houston Rockets. And the 13th straight playoff game win, now the second longest streak by any team in the NBA playoff history. So I was close. It was 13th straight that they were undefeated, which is very, very good. So that was good until they lost in Game 3. So that was good. Knicks up 2-0, going back to New York. A lot of hype surrounding that. Game 3 in New York, the first finals since 1999. And I think it's the first finals they won in a long time. I think it was like 27 years, I believe. I don't know. I'll fact check that later. But it was the first finals they made since 1999, and the first finals they won, I think, since 19-something. We'll get into that later. But yeah, the first final since 99. So there's a lot of hype in New York, a lot of celebrities courtside. Of course, President Trump was there. Big stories around that. A lot of other New York celebrities around town. A lot of Spike Lee, the usual Knicks crowd, and a lot of hype there. And unfortunately, though, getting into Game 3, well, unfortunately for Knicks in New York, ended with a 115-111 Spurs victory in Game 3, leading the Knicks with a 2-1 lead going back to Game 4 in New York still. So that was interesting. We had a 64-57 lead at the end of the first half. The Spurs opened 7 straight points and established a double-digit lead 4.5 minutes into the game. They converted on 9 of their first 11 field goal attempts and led 33-22 at the end of the quarter. The Knicks responded in the second quarter with an 11-2 run and narrowed the lead of 40-38. They scored 14 points on the final 6 possessions, ending the half as the Spurs faltered offensively, outscoring them 42-24 during the quarter and taking a 64-57 lead, like I was saying, at the end of the first half, I believe. And then, Game 4, arguably one of the biggest games in the series thus far, besides, I guess, Game 5 that the Knicks actually win. But this is probably one of the biggest tipping points in the series. Like, this, more than likely, I'm kind of being over dramatic, but it possibly diverted history at the end here of Game 4. So we're going to get into that. OG Anunoby's game-winning putback layup with 1.2 seconds left sealed the Knicks' 29-point comeback win in Game 4, moving them within one way away from their first title since 1973, which is that's when there was. The Knicks' 29-point comeback was the largest comeback in finals history, surpassing Game 4 of the 2008 series between the Boston Celtics and the LA Lakers, where Boston erased a 24-point deficit. New York broke their own franchise record for the largest postseason comeback and tying the 2025 champion OKC Thunder for the second largest comeback in playoff history. Karl-Anthony Towns picked up 2 fouls in the game's first 90 seconds, becoming the fastest player to pick up that many fouls that early in an NBA Finals game since 1998, and the Spurs took an early lead in the first quarter, and then Wembanyama received a flagrant foul on an elbow to the face of Mitchell Robinson, which is a controversial one, saying that he, I don't know, probably should have gotten ejected for that. That was after Wembanyama taunted Mitchell Robinson, so on the play before. San Antonio's, then moving on, San Antonio's 19.41 to 22 lead was the largest first quarter led by a road team in the NBA Finals history. Forward Devin Vassell had the best quarter of the series, scoring 12 points and a perfect 4-for-4 field goal attempts. And then, of course, we got to talk about, somebody else here on the Spurs. Dylan Harper, the 20-year-old. Oh my God, it just hit me that I'm also 20 years old, and this guy's out here putting up stats, big stats in the finals. I got to do something with my life, brother. I got to do something with my life, man. Anyways, Dylan Harper led the San Antonio Spurs. I'm also reading off an article here to the 2026 NBA Finals, where they were defeated 4-1 by the New York Knicks. Despite the loss, the 20-year-old rookie guard had a historic postseason, becoming just fourth rookie in NBA history to score 20 or more points in consecutive Finals games. Game 4, a series high of 21 points, 8 of 12 shooting, plus 4 rebounds and 3 assists. Game 5, 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in the decisive loss. Finals averages 18.0 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 3.0 assists per game on 49.3 field goal shooting. So that's very good, especially for a rookie in the finals, nonetheless. So that's very good. I think they could definitely rely on him, and he's definitely going to be a big part of the Spurs. I think the Spurs' future, especially as a rookie, if they develop and use him to the right tutelage, I think he could be a big point for the Spurs. So that's definitely something I wanted to touch up on. Going back to Game 4 and then kind of wrapping up that and going into Game 5, of course, OG Anunoby with the tip-in. He's just to mention the finals. Won 2 rings. I guess now he's won 2 rings so far. Of course, with the Raptors in 2019 and back with the Knicks in 26. So that's just an interesting fact I wanted to add on. So in Game 5, the winning game for the Knicks. Excuse me, I was going to say the Spurs. But on the back of a 45-point performance from guard Jalen Brunson, the Knicks entered their 53-year title drought with a 94-90 triumph, which was very close. I mean, they were pretty close to getting back, the Spurs. So it was a close loss, unfortunately, which I thought that was interesting. And then Brunson joined Michael Jordan as the only guards to score 45 points, both on the road in a championship-clinching game. The game followed a similar trend to most of the 4 other games. The Spurs got off to a quick start. That was not due to their offense like Game 4. And then, of course, that was not due like Game 4, like I was saying. And then their defense held the Knicks to just 13 points in the first quarter, which included a stretch where they held New York to just 10 points on 3 of 20 shooting in the first 10 minutes of the game. Victor Wembanyama led the way with 3 blocks and continued to get Karl-Anthony Towns into foul trouble. On offense, Dylan Harper was a perfect 3-for-3 shooting with 7 points off the bench. So that's just kind of the summary for Game 5. And, of course, the kind of going to the end of Game 5, because that was pretty interesting. I think because it was so close, 94-90. So a big moment came at 5 minutes, 30 seconds left in the fourth quarter in the game, when the Spurs challenged a foul call on Wembanyama, which would have given him 4 fouls. Instead, a replay showed Towns pushed Wembanyama before barreling into Brunson, which referees overturned and thus gave Towns his 5th foul. At 3:40, Devin Vassell fouled Brunson at the 3-point line. Brunson hit all 3 free throws, giving him 43 points, and the Knicks lead for the first time since the 8-minute mark of the first quarter. Spurs rookie Dylan Harper, as I was talking to him about, had a chance to tie the score at 90 with 20 seconds left on a fast break layup attempt, but missed. After missed, De'Aaron Fox chose the foul instead of playing out the clock in hopes for a rebound on the last-second shot. After Josh Hart split his free throws, the Knicks fouled up 3 instead of allowing the Spurs to get the 3-point shot attempt. Harper missed the first free throw and then second on purpose. OG Anunoby rebounded the ball and was fouled by Harper, and split, resulting free throws going up for 7.7 seconds left. Wembanyama missed a 3-pointer, giving New York the championship. Despite only going 5 games, the finals were decided by an average of 4 points. The Knicks also led in the series for just 23.6%, which is a topic of discussion. I mean, a lot of people say the Spurs kind of blew their chances. They had a lot of chances to come back and, win this finals, and they said they blew it a lot. And I think, some of that could be attributed to their, the youngness of their team. They got a lot of young guys on there, as that was a big talking point. So that was just a topic of discussion. Me personally, I think that could be true. I think they did have a lot of chances, But I don't think it's all, because of that. They didn't lose it all because of that. I think there was a multiplicity of other, reasons, and I think they still did fight like hell to, to get to their point. They were, they almost came back down 3-1 if they only pushed it a couple more games. So, I don't think that was the only reason. So I digress. Then, of course, ABC play-by-play announcer and longtime Knicks TV announcer Mike Breen. He's classic. Love him. Love Mike. Knicks definitely a Knicks. He can't show his bias on national television, but he was definitely happy to see the Knicks win. He noted that the Knicks has won the title on June 13th, which is coincidentally the same number as Red Holzman's number 613 wins as the Knicks head coach. Holzman was the head coach for the Knicks' first two championships in 1970 and 1973. During the postgame with many Knicks fans in attendance in San Antonio, Jalen Brunson was named the NBA Finals MVP. Many former Knicks greats, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, Walt Frazier, Allen Houston, as well as notable fans Spike Lee, joined the team as they were awarded the Larry O'Brien Trophy by Commissioner Adam Silver. And that's history. That's finals history, the 2026 NBA Finals. New York wins. So I'm personally happy for the Knicks. Like I said, I would be happy with either or team, but I think the Knicks definitely deserve this one. Some Knicks, didn't hate, but I think that they definitely deserve this. It's been a long time for their fan base, and I think they deserve it a lot. You can see Jalen Brunson very emotional, especially when an MVP. The whole team was emotional, so I think they all definitely deserved it, all these guys. Mike Brown, of course, head coach. He had a lot of history with the Warriors as assistant coach, also serving as head coach for a temporary time while Steve Kerr was out. So he's won a lot of finals with the Warriors. Then, of course, Mitch Johnson on the other side, just talking about the coaches. He kind of stepped in for Greg Popovich, and then now he's a full-time head coach. So Mitch Johnson's good. I mean, I think, again, he could definitely lead the team to the finals again. So I think just to touch up on that, that's definitely not, not out of the realm of possibility. So I think there's a lot of positive things going into the offseason to think about if you're a Spurs fan. So after the Knicks won the finals, a lot of people were calling it that New York's going to riot. There was mad riots, mad people partying, stuff getting smashed in and thrown destroyed. I'll show some of that. A lot of people were making memes about how New York's going to burn down whether the Knicks lose or win the finals. And, well, you see it before you. Some of the footage here, like I was saying, I'll show. That's the footage. They were smashing up NYPD cars and just, it was crazy, dude. I personally wasn't there, of course. But it was crazy. It was just crazy to see all over the internet. I figured that was interesting to talk about and show some footage of. Just because Knicks fans are so crazy, just like Philly fans, probably even crazier than Philly fans. And man, that city went crazy. And I think the parade was just the other day. As I'm recording this video, the parade was the other day. But it was footage like right after they won the finals, and as the Knicks came back from San Antonio. So that was crazy. I thought that was interesting to talk about. So. That just happened. That's just a matter of fact. But, honestly, you could write that off as just typical. I mean, of course they're going to do that. It's New York. But nonetheless, it still is crazy to see. But yeah, I thought that'd be interesting. But yeah, pretty much wrapping it up here. We're going to wrap up the video. My final overall thoughts are, I like this finals. I like the 2026 finals. I think, like I was saying, high stakes, for both teams. And I think the Knicks, both teams would have deserved the finals. Whoever won, I think both teams would have been praised and commended. I think, for NBA fans, neutrally. But very good to see the Knicks win the finals. They definitely deserved it. Long-time fans have been waiting, and the finals was just so much more hype this year. I didn't feel as hype as it was, like I was saying, last year, but I think this year the finals are back. Of course, they put the, a lot of people wanted, they put the NBA, the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the middle of the court, which is what a lot of people wanted. So I think the NBA really did a good job on hyping up and promoting this finals and making it actually feel like the finals. Because last year didn't really feel like an NBA finals, a lot of people were saying. So I think, the NBA did a good job in doing, I think they improved on a lot of things and they made it feel like an NBA finals. So that was very good to see. I think the finals have hype to it, and hopefully, they could do the same thing in the coming years. And hopefully next year's finals is just as exciting as this one. And yeah, that's my overall thoughts on it. So that'll pretty much do it for the video. Of course, doing our annual finals tradition. So I think, like I was saying at the beginning, I'll touch up on the Stanley Cup finals coming weeks. I know that just wrapped up, so we'll get to that. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in NHL. But yeah, of course, that'll pretty much do it for today's episode of My Thoughts. Got a lot of other My Thoughts episodes besides the Stanley Cup video. I got a lot of other things I would like to talk about within My Thoughts. So we got a lot of cool My Thoughts videos coming on the horizon. So stay tuned for that. Of course, leave a comment down below what you think of the Knicks winning the finals, or just the finals overall in general. Comments down below along with feedback, all the good stuff. Comments are always open, so I'd like to see that. Of course, be sure to subscribe for more content, like if you all good stuff, Discord, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, links in the description. And yeah, for now though, I will see you guys in the next video.